Hi, welcome to Shelf Starters. I'm Rosie,
And I'm Kate.
and we are looking at women in power today, finally.
Yes, we've been waiting for this one.
So this is a section in the Norton where we are looking at the queens, various queens of Britain.
Yep.
And their like letters, speeches, some like actual documents written by them.
And poems, which I think is really interesting. And I love what they wrote in the Nortons about 5 decades of female rule.
Yeah, the intro was really
I've never thought about it before. You know, it's really interesting, that concept.
It's such a contrast, it doesn't make much sense because it was such a like patriarchal
time. But interestingly, I thought what I really also thought was really interesting is that 5 decades of female rule where none of the women appeared to do anything else or anything for any other women to empower anyone else at all.
There was no actual effort towards feminism, despite having
they didn't look out for one another. In fact, they kind of stabbed knives into each other's backs in certain instances. So I thought that was really, really interesting because I'd never really stopped and thought about it. So yeah.
No, I think because they were always so worried about themselves and how to make themselves like sort of keep in power as a woman. So there was a lot of concern about the role of women.
Well, I think just like a man, much like a man.
Yeah. Well, they were making themselves out to be like men as well.
Yep.
Kind of. Yep. In the case of Elizabeth.
I mean,
it's a different take on how to make how to have a strong female role, isn't it? To like just make them more like men instead of just bringing women up.
Yes. Very, very interesting. But interesting to look at these kind of expressions of literature, because that's another thing I think most people don't think about. We all know, we're familiar with the stories, but you don't really think about them as writers.
Yeah, the actual like queens,
So I love doing this. It was great.
I thought of Elizabeth as like more supportive of the arts and stuff, but not as an artist herself. So we start with Mary Tudor.
Mary Tudor, yes. Do you find you get your Mary stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, I also get confused about the more recent one as well.
I know. You have to stop
just like,
yeah, who are these Marys? So this one, Mary Tudor, Mary Tudor is Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary is the one that that I always feel really bad for when she's a child, because of like her whole situation with her mother. So she's the mother that Henry
Catherine of Aragon was her mother, wasn't she? So the Spanish Catholic
that's the one that everyone loved, and then Henry like fell in love with Anne Boleyn and just tossed her aside. And this poor child was just there, like not sure if she was going to be killed or not, because Henry was going around killing everyone.
Yes, but then now that I've read this, I'm kind of thinking I don't feel very sorry for her anymore.
Well, towards the end, she became quite horrible herself. Yeah, when she got older. But as a child, that would have been so scary to not know if like one day your father is just going to like sign something and have you killed.
No,
like she waited her whole life.
It's an interesting question, isn't it? Was she just, is this to do with nature or nurture? Was it the horrible life she had? Because she really kind of got into burning victims at the stake, didn't she?
Yes. Then she became Bloody Mary.
That was why she's like Bloody Mary.
So because she was a Catholic.
Well, yes. So because she was Catherine's daughter. So Catherine was
Catholic. So she was she was Catholic. So she and Catherine was really like strong about the Catholicism.
Yeah.
And so she had 283 Protestants burnt at the stake.
And that's a lot of people.
But it's not as many people as were executed by Elizabeth and Henry VIII. It's just that the method was brutal.
Yes.
So she's known as Bloody Mary.
Yes.
Yeah.
But she also, she sounds really interesting, Rosie. She also had phantom pregnancies.
Yeah, it's a bit sad.
That's kind of interesting ground. I think what is
I'm sure I've seen that on a TV show, probably The Tudors.
Probably. But the first thing we get is her letter to her father, or an extract from.
This is where you feel bad for her because she's like trying so much to get his good books, basically.
I know, and it's so far, far, far too over the top, isn't it? I mean,
it's so over the top. She's like, I highlighted like all the. She kept saying humbly,
prostrate before the feet of your most excellent majesty, most humble, faithful, obedient subject. Yeah, she. Oh wow.
Yeah, beseeching your mercy, like she's really just begging,
pleading and begging.
Yeah, because he wanted her to sign the oath of succession and supremacy. So
Yes.
basically saying that she was like, if she signed that, she would be
yourself out.
acknowledged as a bastard and then not have any right to the throne.
Yeah. So he's basically said, look, I don't need you. I don't want you at all. I need you to sign off and get out. And she's basically hoping that she can write and change his mind by begging and pleading and calling herself an obedient daughter and handmaid.
Yeah, which she didn't succeed. I think she did have to sign in the end.
Yes,
but in his will, he did actually leave her second in line to the throne. So he didn't completely cast her aside. She actually was ahead of Elizabeth.
So after this letter, the next piece we get is about the coronation.
Yeah, so it's not by her. It's like an account of her coronation.
Yes.
Yeah, and it talks about Elizabeth having to be declared a bastard now. So now it's like now we're all pro Mary, we're anti Elizabeth.
Switched over.
Back and forth. That's interesting.
Oh, I loved reading this because it really kind of goes through all the rites and rituals and the traditions that, we will in fact, I guess, see soon, dare we say. when this
I don't know if they'll do quite all of them. Like, I'm not sure about this Knights of the Bath that have to plunge naked into a bath with the king and kiss his shoulder.
No,
I don't think
they do just do some kissing on the shoulder anyway, with clothes on.
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff, yeah.
Clothes on later.
Then it gets to her when she gives a speech in the Guildhall.
Oh, Guildhall, yes. And that's when now she's got a real agenda, hasn't she? Because this is in the wake of Thomas Wyatt. He gathered
not the Thomas Wyatt we talked about,
but the son of Thomas Wyatt. The son of
Thomas also Wyatt. Called son of Thomas Wyatt, also called Thomas Wyatt.
Yes, as you did in those days, have your child call your child by your name, which is really confusing. But anyway, this Thomas Wyatt, the son of the writer Thomas Wyatt, gathered a posse of people together to essentially storm. He came from Kent, didn't he, down to London?
Yeah,
that's right, and ready to basically throw her out. So he was a traitor, and he gathered all these other people behind him to rise up against her because she's Catholic.
Yeah,
pretty much. And she is ready with a speech.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful as well.
It's extremely powerful.
And she kind of does a bit of a guilt trip to her people.
She does. She does. Absolutely.
I doubt not that you will show yourselves like faithful to me.
Yep.
And she also talks about loving her people as a mother doth love a child.
Yeah. And then she sort of says, I'm sorry, I haven't had a child, so I don't really know what that's like. But if I did know what it was like, I'm pretty sure it would be like this. Yeah. And she also says, but she said, yes, you're right. She plays on their guilt hugely. You promised your allegiance and obedience unto me, and that I am the right and true inheritor of the crown of this realm of England. I take all Christendom to witness. My father, as you all know, she's like,
he
really wagging a finger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she says, pluck up your hearts and like true men, stand fast against these rebels.
Yes. She's really, really strong. She uses all the rhetoric that you would, assume had been taught to young men, but clearly she's got the skills. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good speech. And it worked.
Yep.
Yeah. So then the uprising collapsed and Thomas Wyatt and his other rebel leaders were executed.
Executed. Correct.
Yeah. Good speech. Successful.
Yep. Yeah. She sounded very strong indeed. So she was 38 when she delivered that speech. This was February, and she wasn't married. She did in fact get married in July that year. Mm-hmm. So after this speech, because she talks about, look, I'm not a pushover, and I'm not going to just get married for the sake of it. She actually says this marriage shall be for the high benefit and commodity of the whole realm. Marriage.
But she actually did just die naturally. 1558 she died.
So that was 4 years after this speech. Great speech anyway. It read beautifully. And you could imagine.
She's buried together with Elizabeth, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. But then we get to Lady Jane Grey, even more interesting.
Boring.
I think she's
so boring.
I disagree. I think she's really interesting.
Okay, it's interesting.
Because
I just find her
she's
like
one of Ascham's tutors, students.
Yeah, no, she's not. She's not. We've been through this. She wasn't
That's right. I
taught
always
by
think she
Ascham. But Ascham admired her because basically she was a goody who was really good at her studies and stuff.
Well, she
but I find her like,
she was 16 years old when she died.
Yeah, she had a short life. I felt like honestly
she was a queen for 9 days. She was a queen for 9 days at the age of 15 years old. So she had to grow up pretty fast. And then she was beheaded. She watched her husband get his head chopped off.
I do feel bad for her. Like she had a bad time. Basically, when she was young, her parents like fully abused her as well.
They were horrible.
They were horrible to her, and they used her to get to the throne. So all of this was not really her fault.
No,
nothing that happened. Like something she actually wanted.
So her mother was, I think, her mother was a granddaughter. Is that right? Of Henry VIII? No,
of Henry VII.
Yeah.
So she had like a credible claim to the throne, and that's kind of the whole issue.
Yes. And then at 15 years old, she becomes queen for the day for 9 days, and then she marries. So she's a baby, and she marries another. She marries, and she then watches from the tower. She's in there. She's in the tower, watching while they chop off her husband's head when she's 16 years old, and then they chop off hers. So she married
Guildford Dudley.
I
think Northumberland.
That was a political alliance, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a political alliance, and it was all set up by her father. So this is the thing, like her father engineered the entire.
Yeah,
and she just went along with it. But then when it came to when she actually had married, I think her father was assuming that Northumberland would be ruling. Northumberland's son, Guildford, would be ruling mostly, and that Jane would just be this like figurehead kind of thing.
Yes.
And that the father would then be able to rule through Guildford, kind of. And in the end, Jane was like, she didn't allow her husband to be king alongside her, so she had the sole rule, which
she was fiercely Protestant, wasn't she?
Yes, that was. I mean, that's kind of also why I find her kind of annoying, because she
wasn't letting go of that.
So super religious, and so like that's all she believes in is her one. Like,
I thought you'd like her, Rosie. She was described as the most learned woman of her century.
I'm sure she was very cool, but I just like I keep that image of when Ascham does the description of her, and she's just like reading in her room. I mean, okay, maybe I identify with her a little bit, but in a way that I'm like, I find her a little bit sad. I'm like, get outside, do something.
Yeah, I don't think she did much getting outside. She just was busy reading Latin and Greek and quoting.
She just seems to be so like, and she's kind of like a little bit full of herself in her, like she feels superior. I think is the thing. She feels herself superior to others in her faith and her intellect, and that kind of annoys me.
I'm pretty sure that was her survival mechanism.
That was her
parents clearly had no feelings for her at all.
No,
she was just a pawn that they used, and and in using her, basically, they caused her to be murdered.
And then she writes that really that letter to the guy who did convert.
Oh yes,
that's like, it's brutal.
Yes, from the tower. You mean that letter that she wrote when she was in the
tower? So when one of her it's who is it who converted, but like someone she was like really close to converted to the other side, and she was like,
it was a chaplain, wasn't it?
Yes. She writes this brutal message about, she calls him thou seed of Satan.
Yeah. Spawn of the devil.
The deformed imp of the devil.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty funny. It's actually hilarious to read.
Like, yeah. I mean, when you think about it as like a teenager, it's actually kind of funny.
Yeah, a cowardly runaway.
She's
got some great expressions, really good ones.
Oh yeah. She really was very intelligent.
Yeah, but she was also supposed to be beautiful as well. It's hard to tell from the tiny little picture we've got. So they've included in the Norton a tiny little oil, like a black and white version. Yeah, here it is of the.
Yeah, hard to tell.
Yeah, no, you can't really tell from that because it's very dark. The print is very dark anyway, and apparently it was. It had big scratchy lines across it, like it may have been like attacked, like as an iconoclastic kind of religious thing attacked. So, but apparently she was supposedly very beautiful, is what I read. So beautiful, educated, supremely educated, extremely, extremely, extremely bright, and also incredibly committed to her religion. But then she
not very fun is the thing. I don't imagine her being a very fun person.
Okay, no, I don't think she partied down hugely at the age of 16.
It was fun. But anyway.
And then she writes to her actual father. So basically, the way she writes to her father is nothing like the way Mary was writing to hers.
No, that's true. And it's much shorter.
Much shorter. It's very succinct, snappy, to the point. It's all quite logical as well. Although it had pleased you.
She's hoping that he will like repent and be forgiven, basically.
Yeah.
But she's obviously very clear and like, I was innocent in all of this. This was your fault. But to be clear, this was your problem.
Just to be clear. Yeah.
But but you know, she wants him to like repent and be saved, basically.
And there's a second letter as well that's just basically, it's just one paragraph, and it's just about religion, really, isn't it?
It's just all religious, yeah.
And though it hath pleased God to take away 2 of your children, yet think not, I most humbly beseech your grace that you have lost them, but trust that we, by losing this mortal life, have won an immortal life. So it's pious to the end, isn't it?
Yeah, just like, don't worry about us, we'll be fine. We're going to heaven.
And she's saying, I've honoured your grace in this life. We'll pray for you in another life.
Yeah.
Like, so even though you were horrible and did all the wrong things,
I'll pray for you.
Hoping you'll be better the second time round, or you know, in the afternoon.
You also have a prayer from her as well.
Yes,
which is a lot.
Being defiled with sin, encumbered with affliction, unquieted with troubles, wrapped in cares, overwhelmed with miseries, vexed with temptations, and grievously tormented with the long imprisonment of this vile mass of clay, my sinful body, do come unto thee, O merciful Saviour, craving thy mercy and help, without the which so little hope of deliverance is left that I may utterly despair of any liberty. Whoa.
Long sentences. I feel like she should have some editing there.
Very long sentences, but she's very, very miserable, Rosie. And desperate.
Yeah, she's very
also very.
And then her the account of her death in Foxe's Acts and Monuments.
Oh, yeah.
Or Foxe's Book of Martyrs, also known as that.
Where they were trying to get her, he was basically they were trying to convert her to the very end.
Yeah, she did not.
And just do it. Just convert, and you don't have to go through this stuff. Or, you know, even if you do, it'll be better.
Yeah. So she was very strong about it.
Yep. The actual account of the whole execution is pretty grueling, isn't it?
Yeah, when I read the extracts from the Book of Martyrs, it was all like that. Like every single one is like, oh, it's just horrible.
You can visualize it so well. So all the straw on the floor ready there. And then, but it's so sad. She saw the block, and then she said, I pray you dispatch me quickly. And then she said, will you take off? So she's got something across her eyes. And she says, will you take it off before I lay me down? And the hangman says, no. Then tied she the kerchief about her eyes, and feeling for the black, feeling like, you know, because she can't see anything. So she's actually feeling for the block. And she says, what shall I do? Where is it? Where is it? And it's so awful, that thought. I mean,
yeah. Not something you really practice, finding the block to get your head chopped off.
Oh, it's just such a horrible image of someone in the total dark when something so horrible is about to happen to you.
Very brave.
Yeah. I read.
And so then the very interesting thing that I have discovered about these executions is that all of their clothes that they, like, when they're dead, go to the person who executed them.
Oh, I thought they were burnt. I thought they had a big furnace next to it, ready to kind of burn everything.
They do, but like the executioner is allowed to take some of the stuff as blood payment.
Would you want to do that?
I know, and then if you want them not to do that, which they often did not want their executioner to have their stuff, then you had to like pay them instead. So there would be a deal with like
cut my head off.
Yeah, like, please don't take this. I'm giving it to my ladies in waiting instead, because they like deserve to inherit my clothes. I think it was very weird. And instead we're going to pay you. So like they have to make that little deal so that the executioner doesn't take their like stuff, jewelry.
I haven't read that. Awful.
Weird, right? Because that's like, it's like what they're supposed to be owed. Can you imagine an execution just having like little bits of clothes from all the people they've killed in their house? It's really weird.
I just can't even imagine putting your hand up and saying, I'd like to be an executioner.
So
Whoa.
Mary, Queen of Scots,
yes,
is the one we have a lot of.
She's amazing. She was the one who was in prison for 19 years. 19 years.
She had a tough
went
life.
in a girl and came out a woman with grey hair hidden under a wig to make out that she wasn't grey. So yeah, interesting. And also not very long in actual Scotland, really.
No, so when she was a child, she was taken away to France.
Yeah, she's more French than she was Scottish. She didn't even learn.
Yeah, so she grew up in France. It's in that movie, that TV show Rain.
Yeah.
You like see that whole theme of her childhood, and when she comes to Scotland at 18 for the first time.
Yeah,
so
pretty interesting. So really, yeah, everyone says she was more French than she was Scottish.
Yeah.
And then in England, she had this casket of letters.
So there's this whole before she gets to England, there's a whole scandal. So she had a few different marriages.
Yeah.
And then at some point there was a scandal with the murder of David Rizzio, and like her husband was implicated in the murder. So she was kind of also, by extension, possibly involved in this murder. And then she had to flee. She was imprisoned actually in Scotland, and forced to abdicate the throne to her 1-year-old son.
Yeah.
And then she managed to get out somehow, flee to England.
Yes.
And she had to beg Elizabeth for safety, but Elizabeth was like, well, you're a danger to me. Locked her up straight away.
Yeah.
And then while she was there, this whole trial was going on.
She resisted killing her for a long while.
For a really long time, yeah.
19 years, actually.
Because they were cousins, and I think she kind of felt for her. Elizabeth was actually kind of nice about it, to be honest. But then there were these casket letters that we don't know if they were actually, we don't know if they're real, basically, because the only thing that's surviving is, I think, translations of them.
Yeah.
So not the real thing.
But they were meant to be 8 letters and 12 sonnets, all in French. So anyway, she's basically in jail waiting for Elizabeth to decide whether or not she should have her head chopped off.
Yeah.
And while she's...
And then letters are found, and the letters are implicate her in the murder. So it's like evidence against her.
Yes.
So
in here we've got a letter from the casket, haven't we? And then we've got a letter to Elizabeth I.
She really,
she's talking about how unjust it is that she's been usurped.
Yeah. But if those casket letters are real, then she definitely brought it on herself.
Well, that's right.
Right?
But
it's all about whether...
We'll never know that. We'll never know.
No. But she
I
calls
like her
her...
sign-off. You like her sign-off to Elizabeth I, your most faithful and affectionate good sister and cousin and escaped prisoner.
Yeah.
That's a good sign-off, I think. Her writing is a good read, and she's very direct, and she actually is quite, she's very articulate, but she's also quite verbose, I think. She's quite long-winded. Yeah. But then more interesting than her writing, I think, or more moving, was the narrative describing her execution. That, I think, was very moving writing. The description of what happened, wow. But also, there were some pretty interesting bits in it where they talked about how she was corpulent, had a fat face, broad, double-chinned, hazel-eyed. They all talked about her borrowed auburn hair because she was wearing a wig, because the hideous image of them when they're chopping off her head and they picked up her head by the hair, it came out. So it was a wig. Oh. So the guy was left holding the wig, the auburn wig, and then her head popped out and fell on the ground.
Ew.
And it was like a little grey head.
And the other thing that was really sad was the dog.
I know, hiding under her skirts. And then
so she had a dog hidden in there the whole time under her skirts, and it stayed, it was in between her legs while she was having her head chopped off.
Yeah.
And then it went in between, it came out and ran in between her head and her neck.
Yeah.
Basically.
And
they couldn't get it away. It refused to
lay
move.
and cried. It lay and just cried. And it describes the scaffold, and it makes you really feel creepy, doesn't it? 2 foot high, 12 foot broad, with rails round about, hanged and covered with black, and a low stool, long fair cushion, and a block covered also with black. The stool brought her. She sat down. Oh, my Lord. She made very small noise. No part stirred from the place where she lay. The executioners lifted up the head and bade God save the Queen. Then her dressing of lawn fell from her head, which appeared as grey as if she had been 70 years old. Or she actually was 44, but they're saying, oh, she looked like she was 70 or something. Her lips stirred up and down almost a quarter of an hour after her head was cut off.
Yeah, that's disturbing, right?
Creepiest
like
image in
twitching
the world.
lips.
Disgusting. Really disgusting. Oh.
We have a little picture of a watercolor of the execution. And my bookmark fell out.
So they say it's a watercolor, so it's actually in colours, not in black and white like we've got here.
Yeah.
So Rosie, while I've been reading this, it's interesting that 2 nights ago I watched this thing about the last hanging in Melbourne in Australia.
Oh yes, that's interesting.
It was because much of what there was a journalist who was there who was describing what it was like to be at the scene, to watch it. And much of what he described is not actually dissimilar from these accounts of executions here. And the thing he said that was really terrible, or that stuck with him, was the absolute courage with which the victim just basically walked to his death, and then and just kind of very calmly looked at them all and said his words, and then the complete and utter silence of the whole thing. And it just is kind of like what we're reading here. The same very horrible, eerie, awful.
So then we get to Elizabeth.
Yes. And things with her, you know, you could just feel a completely different, it's like a much more positive, really different feeling associated with anything here, like all her writing. A really,
which is really clever, like really clever.
Yeah.
And she played the game very well.
Yep. Yep.
So she is the one who was educated by
Ascham.
Yes. And she was like educated as well, if probably better than most men at the time.
Yep.
And yeah, at the time, like when she was young, she was, you know, in hiding as well, and at some point imprisoned because of Mary. So because she is a Protestant, Mary was Catholic.
Yep. And she came to the throne, so she was 27 when she was crowned. Is that right? No, 25. And our current queen was 27.
Right. Okay. So very small.
Yeah. Nice little parallels going on. Actually, I mean, her reign, they thought was a really long one, but in the scheme of things, not nearly as long as our.
Yeah, not now.
Now.
But
back in the day, that was a long time.
It was a long time. She lasted a very long time. And the whole thing with her was whether or not she would have children, because there had been the War of the Roses previously.
Yep.
So
but she did not want to marry and give up her power.
As a woman,
As a woman. She just knew what not to do. So she just didn't do it.
So she would have loads of suitors, and she would just string them along for ages and ages and never give them an answer. So probably never intended to marry any of them. And then because also like an alliance would be a big difference as well. Like it would be very, very significant. So she, like, for diplomatic reasons, had to be going after very strategically, like the right suitors, but then also not anger them, but not commit. It was a very delicate, like, game to be playing, I suppose.
Yep. No, and the writings we get here are really interesting, because we get
some poems.
The poems. We get a speech to the House of Commons.
An account of her coronation, then many speeches. So there's the speech to the House of Commons, speech to the Joint Delegation of Lords and Commons.
Yep.
There's the letter to Mary.
A letter to Mary, which is, you know, interesting. A letter to Robert Dudley. Now, was he the one? He was meant to be one of her lovers, wasn't he? Was he?
Yeah, I think so. And she was angry with him in this one.
The one that she knows, Sir Walter Raleigh, that was her real lover, wasn't it? And there's a poem there where he writes to her and she writes back.
Yeah, and then the Golden Speech, of course, and then the speech to the troops at Tilbury.
And then, the golden speech is the big famous one, isn't it?
Yeah. But I prefer the speech to the troops at Tilbury.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, that one. So the first thing we get, Rosie.
Verse is written with a diamond.
Verse is written with a diamond, yes. When she was imprisoned. So she scratched this in the glass window.
Kind of funny.
Yeah,
it says, much by me, nothing proved can be, quote, Elizabeth the prisoner.
Yeah. So you can't prove it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to get my diamonds and scratch that in the glass. Yep.
Yeah. And then an account of her coronation. But then we have the speech to the House of Commons. And I think this one is about whether she's going to marry or not. Yes. And then, she's saying that she's like, she knows she's a woman.
I assure you the consideration of my own safety, although I thank you for the great care you seem to have.
Yeah, like, I'm fine. I've got it under control, guys.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. So you don't need to tell me anything. It's okay.
Yeah.
She sounds so in control, doesn't she?
And then she gets a bit angrier in the next one.
And she does the same thing about the mother thing, Rosie.
Yeah, because I think as a woman, like, that's one of the easiest, like, things to go back to, right?
But then we get from that to the speech she gives to the joint delegation of the Lords and Commons. And she uses all these rhetorical questions. Like, she's so strong.
Quite angry as well.
Yep, I will marry a man as soon as I can conveniently. And I hope
leave me alone.
Otherwise, I would never marry. That's a good line.
Yeah, there's no point in marriage.
I'm not just getting married unless I've got to get
I will sort it out.
Yeah. So if I've got to get to a point where I can't have kids, then I'm definitely not doing it. So yeah.
It's very like dominant kind of language.
Yep.
Like, I'm in control.
I am your anointed queen. I will never be by violence constrained to do anything. I thank God I am indeed endued with such qualities that if I were turned out of the realm in my petticoat, I were able to live in any place of Christendom. She's as strong as an ox, as strong as an ox.
And then the reply to Mary is a little bit harsher. So Mary's sent that letter of begging her to help her. And this is more like feels like kind of like an older sibling being like, get it together.
Yeah.
Like, this is the reality of the situation and there's not much I can do for you.
Yeah.
Like, it's so that the contrast of the opening. So Mary talks to her about like, my dear sister or something like that.
And she calls her madam.
She goes, madam.
Yeah.
And then she's like, she doesn't hold back. She says, your mad husband.
Yeah.
So she's not like even pretending that he's innocent.
I exhort you, I counsel you, and I beseech you to take this thing so much to heart that you will not fear to touch even him whom you have nearest to you, if the thing touches him, and that no persuasion will prevent you from making an example out of this to the world, that you are both a noble princess and a loyal wife. I do not write so vehemently out of doubt that I have, but out of the affection that I bear you in particular, for I am not ignorant that you have no wiser counselors than myself. Thus it is that when I remember that our Lord had one Judas out of 12, and I assure myself that there could be no one more loyal than myself, I offer you my affection in place of this prudence.
Yeah, so basically she's saying, if it comes to your close people being suspected of this, you need to distance yourself from them immediately and throw them under the bus so that you get out safely. Like, don't be stupid about it.
Yeah.
It's the only way forward, basically. And Mary did not follow that advice. So
no. And then there's then do we have some poetry?
Some poems.
Yeah.
Some poems. Which were like, they were okay. I don't think she was great at them.
Me neither. I think that's not her strong suit. She's best at making a really powerful speech.
Yeah. She tried the poems. They were a bit like, they sort of seemed like a child trying to write poetry. Like a little bit like a angsty teenager writing some song lyrics, something like that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm imagining.
Yeah. I mean, the one with Sir Walter Raleigh is a little bit cute. But not.
Yeah, that's a nicer one.
Yeah. But and she also writes to Mary's keeper, and let your wicked mistress know how with hearty sorrow her vile deserts compels these orders. And I bid her from me ask God forgiveness for her treacherous dealing towards the saviour of her life for many years. So basically she's saying, I've looked out for her, I've kept her alive, and she's a stabber in the back person. She's blunt, very blunt.
Yeah. But then she becomes a little bit dodgy when she writes to James, though.
Yep. about the miserable accident of accidentally killing her.
Like, oops.
Oopsies, I killed your mum.
It was not my fault.
Yeah. Didn't mean to do it. Yeah, bum.
Really, when she actually says it was not my fault.
Mm-hmm.
How innocent I am in this case.
Yeah. Yeah. Having yourself on. I told you I saw that play that was about Elizabeth and Mary.
Cool. That would be interesting because there's all this stuff about whether they met or not.
Yeah, well, that's what the play was. The play was an imagined meeting of the two of them in the garden, kind of near the tower.
Yeah.
And that they then got to have it all out.
In real life,
that was what the play was. Yeah. It was good play. It really was good. And yeah, so anyway, they didn't do that. But it was a nice imagined.
It would have been cool if they had, but they did not.
Yeah.
And we don't really know why they didn't meet because they were both in England.
Well, I mean, would you really want to meet someone that you were kind of thinking you're going to have to kill? What would you do? Hi, look, I thought we'd get together and I'd explain why I'm going to keep you here for 19 years and then I'm going to probably kill you anyway. I mean, it'd be a lot easier to kill someone you haven't met, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But I wonder, like, I feel like if they had met, maybe Elizabeth could have persuaded her to, like.
No one was going to persuade her to change her religion.
Yeah.
That was not happening. She made that clear.
Yeah.
So
it's a shame.
No, I think if I were Elizabeth, I wouldn't have wanted to have met her either. And everything, we have to remember, everything was so dangerous.
Yeah,
everything was dangerous.
And there were a lot of conspiracy theories during Elizabeth's reign as well.
Everyone had an agenda and you couldn't trust anyone. So the fewer people you came in contact with, probably the better. Yeah,
true. Very true.
I'm guessing.
And then
then we get to the golden speech, which is...
No, wait, the speech to the troops at Tilbury. And do we want to talk about
yes,
about the poem to Raleigh, because
very cool. She calls him pug, like a dog, a pug dog.
Yeah, I thought it was quite cute.
Yeah.
Lots of short names, and also Wat. My Wat is nickname for Walter.
Walter. She called him Wat or Pug, one of the two.
Yeah, very cute.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I know.
That was kind
of playful.
Then, so speak to the troops at Tilbury. So this is when there's the Spanish Armada coming.
Yeah.
And she dresses up in full armor, goes out with the troops, which they all said don't do it because they might people might kill her. Yeah. Well, she might be killed by her own people because they might not stand fast and actually just flee and kill her. And she decides to go out. Yeah, and I think that's an awesome picture of a queen in armor coming out to the troops.
Full regalia and standing there and belting out this speech,
which is a great speech. It's little, but it's good. Yeah. He says that she is resolved in the midst and heat of battle to live and die amongst you all. But this is the best part. I know I have the body but of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king and of a king of England too. Yeah,
she's so good. It's so rousing.
Yeah.
So rousing. Yeah.
So that's my favorite one.
Me too. That's my 100%. Favorite also. You can't not love that one. And also it doesn't bang on. It's a good, short, direct.
To the point. Well, because it has to be this is literally, so what we have is
in a minute,
people remembering what she said because no one was there writing it down at the time.
No, so it's like Abraham Lincoln. It's a bit like that speech.
Yeah, it's like a speech that happened in the moment.
Yep.
No time for it to be long. We're waiting for an army to come and kill them. And then I find that whole situation hilarious that they were basically defeated by the English weather.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty bad, we all know.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. Very rotten weather.
So they never actually arrived to English shores.
But then she does the golden speech.
Then the golden speech, so this was because she was allowing people that she liked basically to have monopolies.
Yes.
In some sort of commerce thing. So she was, I guess, giving too many favors. And in this speech, she basically goes, all right, fine. Fine, I'll undo it. It's fine.
I've listened. It's okay.
Yeah. Because I love my subjects so much. It's basically saying, yes, I've heard you. I agree.
I'm on it.
Yeah. To be a king and wear a crown is more glorious to them that see it than it is pleasant to them that bear it.
Yeah.
So she's like, look, it's hard. I'm sorry. Life is hard.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best. So I think that the reason this is the golden speech is because someone had said that it should be printed like that it was so good that it should be printed in gold,
Okay.
something like that.
Right.
But honestly, to me, the other one is way better.
Oh yes, the Tilbury one. You can't go past that.
Yeah, like this is just like a regular Parliament speech. But anyway,
Have you seen that painting, Rosie,
which one?
of her at Tilbury? There's a painting of
Yeah, not in person, but I have. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I'd like to see. I've seen prints of it, obviously, but I'd just love to see it in real life. So yeah, got to do that. That might be a bucket list arrangement.
it was a long section, Women in Power,
but a really good section.
Yeah,
and very eye-opening. These strong, educated, thinking women in the 1500s.
Who were powerful 5 decades.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Unbelievable.
And of course, now all the stuff about Elizabeth is really important because we get to Edmund Spenser, who's all about her. The Fairy Queen is all about Elizabeth, so that's gonna be very exciting.
That'll be really good. Really good. Yeah.
And especially we didn't really mention the like language of love, that like the cult of love stuff that was going on in Elizabeth's reign. So because she was really like playing on her like womanliness.
Yes.
She made people address her in this really like flowery, over the top kind of way. And like people kind of like fell in love with her as this icon, I suppose. Yeah. So that is very much reflected in the literature that comes during the Elizabethan period, because it's all very like flowery, romantic kind of language.
How are we going to do Edmund Spenser, Rosie? Are we going to?
How are we going to do it? So firstly, there's a short bit first. So we've got the Shepherd's Calendar. That's not that long. So that's just 1 week. Then we get to the Fairy Queen, and that is trickier. So we've got book 1 that I think we do one session on book 1.
Yeah.
And that's the full of book 1. And then I think we have extracts from books 2 and 3.
Okay.
After that.
Okay. So
I think three different
sittings on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. 3 or even maybe 4.
Okay.
Because it's long and challenging. But we're going to be together when we start reading it.
Yeah, we should be really good.
So yeah, and apparently we have Mel, who is a faithful viewer of our channel, has recommended some audiobooks that we could also use to help us along. So
good.
We could listen to some together as well.
That's going to be so fun.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way. There is. If we could get it both on our phones, then when we could go running and listen to it at the same time while we're running.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do it running. We can do it in our car trip. We've got plenty of places to do it around the house.
That'd be so much
fun.
fun.
Dad's going to hate it.
Yeah.
It's going to be very nice.
But it's really, I mean, how fun would it be to be doing the Fairy Queen while we're running this really long stretch of sand and bush?
Yes. I mean, it's kind of out of place, but
I just think it'd be so cool to like be just in this mystical land.
World.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be a good one. I'm going to bring my copy of The Fairy Queen as the only book that I bring.
Yes.
Commission. I think we've got a lot to look for. Like we can hopefully film quite a few things together when we are together.
I've got this really good book. I'm listening to the audio and I've given Mum the book of it. She's loving it and I'm loving it. So we're doing it at the same time. I'm doing it on a treadmill. She's doing it in her house. It's so good. It's called Tendernesses, and it's all based on the trial of Lady Chatterley's lover. So it's the D.H. Lawrence story meshed into Jackie Kennedy, because she goes and watches the court cases and she gets tracked by the CIA because she's obviously a subversive, and so Joe McCarthy's trying to bring them down, the Kennedys down, before they're even in power. He's a senator at this point, and she's just this young woman who's really interested in literature. And it's just, and the two stories are woven together because it's got Frida, D.H. Lawrence's wife, and Jackie, and then really big following of the court case, which is hilarious because they're all so stupid. But it's a good book. It's a really good book.
Is it fiction or non-fiction? Yeah,
it's fiction, but it's just but it's weaving together real. I think I'm going to assume these are real
accounts of the court case. Yeah. No, I think we do have that.
Trespasses. Yeah. Oh no, Tendernesses, because apparently Lady Chatterley's lover was going to be called Tenderness or something.
I think I've heard that. Yeah. I think I have heard that.
So that's why I've got Lady Chatterley's lover to read as well.
Yeah, cool. Plenty of reading to be had.
Oh my God,
All right.
chills.
Well, I think that was a really fun little historical section.
It was.
And then, yeah, the perfect entrance for our really challenging stuff with the Fairy Queen. I'm a little bit intimidated, but I'm also excited.
It's going to be good. It's going to be really good.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. Well, yeah, let us know if you are interested in these speeches and things, if you've seen like representations as well that you really recommend, because there's a lot of media representations of these women, obviously. So I'm always keen on that. If you have one that you think is the best adaptation, I'd love to know.
There are a couple. There even now just a new one. I think
it's constant. There's always
always
a new one. But I love that stuff. I really love all that. So yeah, they can keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's so interesting to look at these women from the point of view of being writers. You know, that's what I found really interesting, because I've never really thought about that.
As being part of the English canon. Yeah.
Yeah. But they really are. They deserve a spot.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah. So anyway, here we are.
All right. Yes, here we are. Cool.
Up to the
we're making our way through here. We're still like early. We're like here.
We're only in. We got a long way.
We're getting through it. We'll be here for years. Yeah. Don't worry.
Years and years. You like being 19 years in the tower. Be the same.
Yes. Yeah. We're like finally getting to Jotan. Many years down the line.
Yeah, I hope I make it, Rosie. Anyway.
You'll make it. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. And see you again next time when I'm in Australia. See you in Australia next time.
In Australia.
Bye. All right. Thanks. Bye.